Just by going and selling it all, you could potentially put yourself into much higher tax brackets. So this is really where strategy and planning comes into place, where you want to look at it at the end of each and every year and find a good, healthy blend of capturing your gains, but keeping your taxes at the most efficient level that you possibly can.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast with Scott Searens, teaching you how to thrive in life, wealth, and retirement.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast, where we're going to discuss thoughts, strategies, and actions to help you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement. I'm your host, Scott Searens, also president and financial advisor at Searens Financial Group. Today's show is all about you and your questions. Today we're going to talk about questions that you might find that you have a similar situation to the person that asked the question, or you might be able to relate to the question. We're going to go over our recommendations, strategies, and thoughts to questions that we've received from what you should do with those old 401ks. We've got questions about what to do about big upcoming expenses like a wedding, and then questions for those of you that might have purchased stock that's really appreciated in value, or maybe you've got a percentage of your portfolio in company stock. How do you balance out the gains that you've had in those portfolios, but then with the tax situation that might come along with it? So maybe some of these questions have been on your mind. You didn't know who to ask. Maybe you have a different question yourself. If so, go to lifemoneyshow.com. Again, lifemoneyshow.com. There's a form where you can fill out. You can put your question in, and we would be happy to add those to the show and to give you our thoughts and recommendations to the questions that you have. Also, subscribe to the podcast at your favorite podcast provider, as we're going to continuously come out with additional episodes to help you build wealth, reduce your overall tax picture, and retire with confidence. Before we dive right into the questions, I think I just have to share this one thing that I have just really recognized this year as I continue to get older is, boy, do I love the summer months. I really enjoy summer. I would say yes, spring, yes, summer, yes, fall, but I'm learning each and every year that I am just not a winter person. I'm not sure about you, and I know there's a lot of people out there, boy, you know, that they really enjoy winter, they enjoy skiing, they enjoy, you know, their time up in the mountains or just the cold in general. And I guess I've really learned that's not me. I don't know why, but that finally clicked to me this year, is that I am definitely a warm weather fan. So anyways, a little bit of a distraction there, but let's dive into today's questions. And our first question we have from Michael. Michael says, I have several old 401ks from companies that I used to work for, and I'm getting tired of keeping up with all of these statements. Can I just combine them into one account? Or maybe the question is, should I combine them into one account? Well, Michael, first off, let me just tell you that you are not alone. As I continue to meet with people and help people through putting together a plan for their overall financial picture, I just want to say that you're not alone. One thing I want you to all imagine is think about that one drawer in your kitchen. I think we all have one, right? That kitchen junk drawer, right? And it just over time continues to gather different, instruments and objects. You've got the tape measure in there. You've got that spoon you couldn't find. You've got everything just kind of continues to pile into it, right? And what do we do with that kitchen junk drawer? And I'm not saying that Michael does this, but what do we typically do with that kitchen junk drawer? Is we ignore it, right? We ignore it until we finally decide, boy, we should really do something about this. So why do I bring that up? Well, I find that over time, people can collect different stocks. They can collect different accounts. They can collect different types of accounts. They might have different funds at different locations. And while that might have been right when you got it, is it now what's right for your future? So I bring that up because I say, Michael, you're not alone. I'm not saying that Michael's ignoring it. Obviously, with the question here, he's saying, hey, I want to get this organized, and can I bring all of these together and then should I. So let's talk about the first question there is, can you? So there are options when it comes to these old 401k plans. One option is that you can just leave it there. You can leave them at all of the old companies, but like you brought up, and I'll talk about this in the should you portion, but as you brought up, you're going to have to deal with all of these companies. You're going to have to deal with all of these different statements. Another thing that I want you to think about is that if something were to happen to you, does somebody know where all of these different accounts are at? So I find that, and in my experience, a lot of people like to get this organized. They like to bring it all into one location. So one option is you can leave it there. The other is that you can roll it over. And you can roll it over potentially, now it depends on your plan sponsor, but you could potentially roll it over into your current 401k plan. So that might be an option that you want to look at. Or you can roll it into an IRA. So you can take all your old 401ks, 403bs, 457s, and you can put all of those into one IRA plan. And if it's done properly, so if you do a proper rollover, then it is a non-taxable event. So as you do this, then you don't have to worry about any sort of taxes, again, done as a proper rollover. Now, to Michael's second question, should you? Well, let me just leave you with some thoughts here, and I'll give you my opinion. Now, leaving it in multiple locations. One, as I had mentioned regarding that kitchen junk drawer earlier, are you really paying attention to it? Do you know, is it aligned with your future? Is it aligned with your plan? Is it invested how you need to be invested for your future and to achieve your goals and to achieve when you want to retire? If it's all in different locations, is it all invested in the same fund or stock? You see, sometimes when things get in different locations, next thing you know, you think, oh, I'm diversified. I've got my money in all of these different old 401k plans, so they're in different locations. However, that doesn't really mean diversification, because what if all of those old 401k plans all own the same stock? Now all of a sudden you might be at a greater risk than if you had them in one location but had them diversified into different asset classes. So leaving it in multiple locations, let me recap here. Are you really paying attention to it? Meaning, do all those different accounts align with your future goals? Is it, are you diversified? Meaning, are you taking on more risk than you should? And then the other last point here of leaving it in multiple locations is that sometimes it can make things a lot tougher at retirement, as you had mentioned here, right? Putting up with all these multiple statements. So you have to think about, your future to go, okay, hey, when it comes to time to take the required minimum distributions and to take withdrawals, I find, and in my experience, it helps getting it all into one location. So let me just give you my opinions about doing a rollover. First off, in rolling everything over, putting it all into an IRA can help you take control of this money. It can help you consolidate, reduce those statements. Now you've got one location where everything is at. A lot of times by having it in an IRA, you're also able to, maybe there's some more tax efficient strategies that are available to you. You might have more options available to you when it comes to the investments, the funds that you can invest in. Sometimes, and again, all of this you have to compare to the different plans, but you might be able to put your money into funds that have lower fund fees. And then, to me, the most important part of consolidating, or one of the key parts here of consolidating all of this together, is now you can really start to optimize these accounts to your plan and to what your future goals are. So back to Michael's questions. Can you? Yes, you can. Should you? Hopefully I gave you some good pros and cons of leaving it in multiple locations versus rolling it over and combining everything into an IRA. All right, our next question here is from Jerry. Jerry says, we have 2 daughters in their mid-20s and will probably be paying for weddings for both of them soon. What's a good way to invest money for an expense like this? Again, we'll probably need it relatively soon. We just don't know exactly when. Jerry, great question here. I think that when we're saving for big events, we have a tendency to go, hey, how can we get our money to grow as fast as possible for this big event? So I want to save, I want to put that money away, I want it to grow as fast as possible to help me out for this event. But then the second part of that question comes, but I need it, right? We can't afford to lose this money. We're saving it for this event that's coming up. So it's a tough balance. And one of the things that wasn't mentioned really in the question is, what does relatively soon mean? Does relatively soon mean 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? And so let's just kind of talk about, hey, if it's under 7 years or over 7 years. So if relatively soon meant for you under 7 years, here's my thoughts. Now I know that this isn't the most exciting thoughts that you would have maybe looking to hear, but I'll explain why. So my thoughts is that if it's relatively soon, let's just say under 5 to 7 years, then you want to keep that money safe. Meaning you're going to want to save it in savings, try to get maybe some more interest, right? So using money markets or CDs, but you want to keep that money safe and you want to keep it liquid. Why is that? Well, imagine this. Imagine that you're saving for your big event and you've saved up $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, and the time for that big event comes and the stock market crashes. Let's just say you had invested that money, right? So instead of my thoughts here of keeping it safe, you had invested that money into the stock market because you said, boy, I want to get, a potential good return on this money. And right now, the banks aren't paying much, so I'm going to put the money in the stock market. Well, what if the stock market crashes? What if the stock market crashes right when you need this money for the event? And this isn't where you're going to need the money over multiple years where you have time to watch the market recover. This is like a one-time event. And so that's why I say that you want to keep that money on the safer side. Again, if it's under that 7 years. Why do I use that rule? You have to kind of look through history. And again, history doesn't mean that's what we'll see in the future. But you have to look through history and say, okay, hey, as the market has had its different corrections, how long has it taken to recover? So now if your event is, maybe 7 years in the future or further out than that, well, then I would say, hey, let's put some or all of this money in the market in a very, in a good diversified portfolio. And then as the date becomes closer, as the date starts to move under that 7-year time frame, let's start to move it towards the safe side. Now, you might be thinking, well, boy, I really don't know when they're going to get married. And in that case, hey, maybe it's starting to find a good balance. You've got some on the growth side, right? Some, if you're out there further than that 7 years, but maybe you've got then a majority of it on the safer side. So again, it's there, it's ready, and it's there for you as you need it to pay for those weddings. Hats off to you for thinking in advance and planning and saving for those weddings. One other thing to think about here is, where do you want to save? And I would recommend saving, again, in non-retirement accounts. So if you're thinking, boy, I'll just put extra money into my IRA, to my 401k, to my 403b to save for these weddings, then you would have to remember, as you take that money out, first off, you won't be able to take that money out until after age 59 and a half. But second part is if you take that money out, you're going to have to pay income tax on every dollar that you take out. So to recap here, where should you save, or how should you save? Where should it be invested? Again, if it's relatively soon, let's just say under that 5 to 7 years, I would really recommend saving into safer type of accounts, something that's not going to be at stock market like risk. And then where to save it, I would really focus on those non-retirement accounts. All right, moving forward, Kate says, I have a Catch-22. I have some Apple stock that I really want to sell because I've made a lot of money over the years, but I'm worried about the tax bill that I might create when I sell. So what's more important, capturing the gains or keeping the taxes low? Well, let's talk about this. And I think there's a third point that I'm going to add in. Again, this is all about learning from others' questions, learning together. So I'm going to add a third point here too that Kate didn't mention in her question. But the third thought process too is, what about risk management? Now, Kate didn't say how much of her portfolio was in Apple stock. I am going to assume in this question that it's all in a non-retirement account. So it's in a brokerage account, an after-tax account, but it's not in a 401k or IRA. So first off, let's talk about from a risk management standpoint, and then we're going to go back to Kate's questions of capturing gains and keeping taxes low. But I always want people to pay attention from a risk management standpoint as well. How much of your total portfolio does this Apple stock make up? I mean, are we talking 1%? Are we talking 5%? Are we talking 10%, 50%? And so one thing that's really important that, you have to kind of balance in now with selling and capturing gains and keeping taxes low is that you don't want this to become too big of a portion of your overall picture. You want to have a good diversified portfolio. And you might be thinking, yeah, but this stock has been doing so well. Like, I should really, I really want to, keep it and hold on to it. But really think about diversifying your portfolio. Think about companies like GE that were doing really, really well and then had a major crash. And it all depends on where you're at in life too, right? So if you're in the accumulation phase of life, well, you might be able to hold on to this stock longer. And if it does crash, you'd have that has a major decline, then you would be able to, and you have the time in front of you to watch it recover. But if you're approaching those retirement years, let's say you're 10 years away from retirement or you're in retirement, now all of a sudden the time frame, the time horizon to be able to recover from a decline in this stock's value can really potentially put some harm to your overall financial future and how much you need to take out of it and having it there for your retirement withdrawals. So one thing is to think about is from a diversification standpoint. It sounds like Kate might already be thinking about that because she said, hey, I really want to sell some of this because I've made a lot of money and I want to capture the gains. And that's great. First off, for those that might not be familiar, let's just explain something really quick here. And let's, again, say this isn't an after-tax account. Let's just say Kate bought and the value when she bought was 50. And it has gained or grown, the new value, the value today is 150. So Kate would have gains of 100. Now, depending on when Kate sold, let's just say some of the stock she held for less than 1 year, well, then she would be looking at short-term gains, which get taxed at normal income tax rate. However, if it's longer than 1 year, then you're looking at long-term gains, which are at the more favorable long-term capital gains rate. So here's a thought in regards to this. I'm going to say that you really want to create a good blend. And what do I mean by that? Well, one of the things that we do with our clients each and every year is we have a year-end planning and tax strategy meeting. And here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to think about the good old days of science class, and you had that graduated cylinder that you could, fill up with the different formulas that you're making in science class. Well, instead of filling it up with water, right, today we're going to fill it up with income. And so at the end of the year, you want to look at how much you're filling up that graduated cylinder, your graduated cylinder, each and every year. You're going to look at how much you're filling it up with income, and then how much you're pouring out for deductions, and then kind of where does that graduated cylinder end up, and then take a look at the tax brackets to go, oh, okay, here is where I'm at compared to where the maybe next tax bracket ends up. And so by doing that towards the end of the year, you're going to have a really good picture of where your income's going to be at for that year. And so then you can decide, okay, hey, based on that, here's how much I should potentially sell to keep yourself within certain tax brackets. Just by going and selling it all, you could potentially put yourself into much higher tax brackets. So this is really where strategy and planning comes into place, where you want to look at it at the end of each and every year and find a good, healthy blend of capturing your gains, but keeping your taxes at the most efficient level that you possibly can. Now, something else to consider. Let's just say that you don't need any of this stock or you don't need any of this money. Again, I really believe in diversification, but one thing right now to think about as well, dependent on what Kate's age is, and to help others that are looking at scenarios like this, is that if you don't need it and you don't need to sell it, then if you were to pass away, your beneficiaries, based on today's laws, would get a step up in cost basis. So back to our example there, if you bought at 50 and the value is now 150, if you were to sell all of it, right, you're going to have to pay gains on that 100. But if you were to pass away, your beneficiaries now get the step up in cost basis, meaning that their new value, their new level, instead of being at the 50 where you purchased at, their new level is at the 150. So just some additional thoughts in regards to that. So some strategies that you can put into place to help diversify your portfolio and manage for today, but also some things to think about when it comes to family planning, legacy planning, and leaving things for others in the most tax efficient way possible. Kate, thanks for your question. I hope that helped not only you, but others really understand diversifying when you have a large portion of your portfolio maybe in one stock. All right, our last question here is from John. John says, Scott, I'm 65 and recently had a heart attack. I'm out of work for another week, but then should be back to normal schedule. My wife seems concerned about my future health, but I have no plans to retire anytime soon. Can you tell her that I'll be fine and it's normal for people to work past 65? Well, John, I'm happy to hear that you're going to be back on a normal schedule here soon. We wish you the best and want you to get back to normal health. First, John, I can't promise your wife that you'll be fine. I'm not certain about your future health. But I can tell your wife that, yes, it is normal for people to work past age 65. Now, and I bring this up, John, not just for you, but for others that are listening in. I think one thing to really look at is what was it that maybe caused your heart attack? Was it stress? Was it stress because of work? Was it stress because of money? Was it health related? And I really, hope that you'll sit back and relax for a second and really take a look at what may have caused this little period in your life and reflect on that to use that moving forward. So, I think that for everyone, right, it's really important that we stay active. For some, that's hobbies, and hey, for others, that's work. I mean, I'll tell you what, my family, I look at my father and his brothers, and all of them continue to work because that's what they love and enjoy to do. And if that's what you love to do, great. Now, if that's what's causing the stress, well then, hey, maybe it's time to review and look at your financial plan. Is that causing stress because you want to make sure that you have enough money saved or that you're trying to save for a certain financial goal? And so just maybe it's time to sit down, review your finances and say, boy, we're on track. And that can help you feel comfort. That might help you feel peace of mind in regards to you and your future. It might help you realize that, okay, well, I want to work, but maybe you can go to part-time. Or maybe it's that you're okay, but you just want to go and find a different job. So I hope that you'll just take some time, reflect a little bit, and look back to say, hey, what was it that caused this? And maybe take some actions so that it doesn't happen again in the future. But to answer your question, plenty of people work past age 65, and I think that is whether it's work or whether it's retirement, activities or hobbies, I think that's really important to keep the mind and body active. Well, I've hoped that you've enjoyed our thoughts, recommendations, in regards to the questions that we discussed today. Now, if you have a question, go to lifemoneyshow.com. Again, that's lifemoneyshow.com, and fill out the form to submit your name, your question, tell us a little bit about your question, and we'd be happy to provide you a response here on the show. Also, at that site, you can find different videos, different blog posts, a lot of content to help you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement. Well, I look forward to our next conversation together to continue to help you to live life today, as well as being financially confident about your future. Thanks for joining the conversation. Make it a great day.
Sierens Financial Group is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and Sierens Financial Group, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Sierens Financial Group, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Sierens Financial Group, Inc.